Now that we are in the run-up area, we are ready to do our before takeoff checklist. So let's do that now. First, we want to make sure the airplane is pointed into the wind, which it is, which will keep the airflow moving over the engine. Next, we'll want to apply the parking brake. Then we'll want to make sure the passenger seats are in the upright position, which they are. Then we want to check to make sure the seat belts and seats are secure. Then we'll want to make sure the flight controls are free and correct. First, we'll check the ailerons. If you turn the wheel to the left, the aileron to the left should be up. The other aileron should be down. Turning to the right means the aileron to the right should be up, and the aileron to the left should be down. Looking behind, we want to make sure the elevator is working properly, which it is, and also the rudder is moving free and correctly, and it is. Forgot this step, but we want to make sure that the windows are shut and the doors are locked. That one is, and turning around, this one is as well. We'll also want to make sure the compass and the heading indicator match, which they both do. It looks like they don't. That's because the compass rotates in the opposite direction of the heading indicator, but they both are at 183 degrees. We'll want to make sure the altimeter is at the correct elevation. When barometric pressure changes, it impacts the reading of the altimeter, so we want to make sure that's set correctly. Right now it says 467 feet. If we compare that to the airport diagram, we see the elevation is 462 feet at runway 26L. So if we wanted to adjust that a little bit, we could with this particular knob. We'll check fuel quantity again, and that looks good. Confirm that mixture is set to rich if we are below 3,000 feet, and it is. Fuel selector valve is set to both. Elevator trim is set for takeoff. And now we are going to set the engine to 1800 RPM. There. Now what we're doing at this point is checking magnetos. We want to make sure there's a slight drop, but no more than 125 to 150 RPMs, depending on the Cessna Skyhawk. The way we do that is to make sure that when the key is at both, the RPM is at 1800, and then we will check the right magneto. And there's just a slight drop. We'll go back to both. Should go back up to 1800. And then we'll check the left magneto. Again, just a slight drop, looks good. And then we'll go back to both. We'll want to make sure the oil temperature and the oil pressure are in the green, which they are. We'll want to make sure the suction or vacuum gauge is okay. Then we'll want to make sure our amps look good, and they look fine. If your aircraft has an annunciator panel, you'll want to make sure that's working properly as well. Ours does not, so we'll skip that step. Then we'll pull our RPMs to 1,000 or less. If your aircraft has a strobe light, you want to make sure that's on. Ours does not, so we'll skip that. Then we'll check to make sure our radio and avionics are all set. This is a good time to switch to tower frequency. You can get the tower frequency off of the airport diagram, and in this case, Spirit Tower is 124.75. As a reminder, if you're at a non-towered airport, you will keep your frequency on CTAF. I went ahead and set the radio to the tower frequency using these two knobs. Keep in mind that before you taxi, you can set one comm radio to ground and the other to tower, and then just switch from one to the other when ready to do so. If your aircraft has an autopilot, you'll want to make sure that's off. Ours does not, so we'll skip that step. Then check to make sure your transponder is on altitude. Double check to make sure your flaps are all the way up. For some takeoffs, such as a short field takeoff, you'll have your flaps set at 10 degrees, but we'll talk about that in another video. Then you'll want to release the parking brake. When you are ready to leave the run-up area, make sure you look before you move. So we're going to look around and make sure everything's clear. And if there are other aircraft, be sure and wait your turn before you move forward. In this case, we're all clear, so we're going to go ahead and move forward. And then we'll talk about the normal takeoff in the next video. Here is the before takeoff checklist. You can pause the video to give yourself more time to become more familiar with it at this time if you wish. Please subscribe to this channel if you wish to learn more.